Hello and welcome to New Hampshire. Look at beautiful New Hampshire, where we are. We are here today in celebration of DP. What is DP, you may ask? Well, before Singer, Countach Works, even the Porsche Special Wishes department came along, you had DP producing the high end of unique, have it the way you want it kind of car. And we've got one right here, look, it's a DP 935 that my lovely friend Danny has brought along. Danny, thanks so much for bringing it along and for allowing me to come up to New Hampshire and spending some time with you and your cars. And I should say, there is a second part to this video, and I'll put up a teaser right now. So that video is coming, so you might wish to subscribe right now so you don't miss that, because that's really special. But for this part, Danny, tell us what we're looking at here and what makes this car something totally different to the car that Porsche built.
Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you for coming to New Hampshire. It's a little bit of a chilly day, but we're really enjoying ourselves.
We are, yeah.
This is a DP 935. It's, to me, the ultimate version of 80s 930 XS and the best of what an aftermarket tuner could offer a high-end customer. Some of those customers back in the day were folks like Mario Andretti, Rod Stewart, Pete Rose.
Because of course it's Rod Stewart, right? This is really Rod Stewart kind of material, this, isn't it? Beautiful.
Yeah.
So really for those high-end of high-end, it went above a 930 turbo, right?
You really were. You were taking an already expensive car to the top level trim, breaking it down immediately when it was new, or most likely when it was early in its life, and modifying it with DP exclusive high-end materials. Back in the day, they started with fiberglass, started exploring with carbon Kevlar. This happens to be a Kevlar-bodied car with now quite a few carbon fiber parts, modern day materials.
And I should add that we have, as part of this video, an interview with the owner of DP, who will tell you about the history of how that came about. The interesting thing about DP that you might not get with some of the other manufacturers today, like Singer, is that it's a family-run company, and still is to this day. Started in the early 70s and had very large success with Kramer and won Le Mans. So you'll hear a bit about that story later in this video. Why don't you and I go around this car and show the nice people what's truly special about it, what's changed, and just go, we're going to get nerdy on you folks. So,
and I do think it's important to note that what differentiates DP from some of the other aftermarket folks making high-end cars off of Porsche chassis is that this is really derived from a racing pedigree.
Yeah.
The partnership with DP and Kramer go back to Le Mans winning 1979 car. Patrick Zimmermann created the body for that car, and this was really the street version of inspired by the racing cars for customers who wanted and craved.
And it feels like that, doesn't it? When you're in it, you and I drove here on a beautiful road. New Hampshire is stunning, folks, if you've never been here. We were blasting along we were below the speed limit.
Sure.
But it feels like that, and the sound is like that race-derived car, right? So
it's race
that's
inspired.
The pedigree that we're not just slapping on body kits here, are we?
No.
It goes much deeper than that.
I mean, Gambalo did style. Gambalo did, TV screens in the dashboard. This was set up for high-performance driving.
Yeah.
There's style, and there's also a lot of substance with this car. And I think it's really exciting that DP is still around today. It's owned by the same family. They're still doing the same types of modifications for cars. It's really an important car in the history of Porsche provenance.
Let's take these folks around and show them around then.
Sure.
All right, we're mobile. We're going to take you around this car now. Danny, the genesis of these cars is motorsport, as we said earlier on. And really that involved, the beginnings of this company were really them making these cars lighter by using materials that were pretty revolutionary for the time. Maybe that's a good place to start in sort of showing what differentiates this car from a 930 turbo, and kind of what is different and special about this car. It really has its genesis in motor racing roots, right? And lightness.
It does, yeah. And Kremer and DP were working together to build race cars. Of course, that culminated in the 1979 Le Mans winning team. And with that came a lot of folks who were interested in ordering a street car. Patrick Zimmermann came up with the idea that they would offer a street version that looked a little bit like the Le Mans car.
Kremer 935, yeah.
The 935. And that's what this car represents. But first there was the DP 935, the first version of it. Did not quite have as wide of fenders. It had a little bit of a different front portion of it, but they were both slope-nosed. The cars are notable for some features worth mentioning. The DP dial of death, which is in the car. It's a variable boost controller. The wide body in the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting place, I think, to look at, is that what you're looking at here are not the original panels on the car that came with it, right?
That's correct, yeah. No, this car was fully broken down, new front fenders, removing the pontoon-style front lights of a 930. The rear of the car was widened. Let's talk about the DP2, because that's what this car is, and that's really the ultimate 935. This was the most extreme, think the Lamborghini Countach of the DPs. What differentiates this car is front oil cooler in the middle, which has a ventilated system for airflow that then flows down the front of the hood and cooling the cooler. You've got carbon Kevlar body on this car, and we'll get into, I guess, the history of this car. We have a carbon fiber front spoiler, and that spoiler is done exactly as it would have come in the Kevlar version, but this is just carbon fiber in the front. The side skirts and the air ducts here venting into the brakes. The extra wide body, an extended rear whale tail, which would have been carbon Kevlar also, and this is Kevlar, carbon Kevlar also. But this is carbon, as is the rear spoiler in the back, or the rear bumper.
So they've shaved a considerable amount of weight, which was what really contributed to the success on the racetrack, really, isn't it? But they've delivered it for the road.
Aerodynamics and weight savings were the key design elements of this car. And yeah, I think we've heard stories of Patrick Zimmermann in the back of a Kremer 935 race version, measuring wind by hand in order to really perfect the aerodynamic capability of this car, of a 935.
And we'll see that a little bit in the interview with Patrick Zimmermann, his son, later on. And I suppose the next part of the car to look at is the interior, because the road cars are a little bit separated from the motorsport cars by having a sort of a early version of what Porsche would have called the special wishes department. So maybe let's talk about the interior and go in there.
Yeah.
All right, so we're in the interior of this DP2 here in New Hampshire. So all of this interior, pretty much all of it, is bespoke, right? I mean, there's very little left of the original 930 from which it began.
That's correct. Yeah, the DP935-2, call it package, typically had certain things that this car definitely has. That being first, the DP dial of death, a nickname for a variable boost controller, which controls the amount of boost that you can give the turbo.
It's confidence building, isn't it? That calling it the dial of death.
Well, you know. It's one of those things that when I look at certain modified cars, and particularly maybe a slope nose, if you see that center dial of death, or variable boost control, you know, it means somebody really meant business back then. And this is something that DP and Kremer perfected together. You know, they were in cahoots. Cahoots sounds funny,
yes.
but they were working together. They had a partnership, and so their street cars, Kremer street cars, looked exactly like a DP street cars. They had some minor differences, but they typically had that variable boost control. So the roof at the time, Ondial also did. But this car, another key feature is this center console. Very much like a Special Wishes Porsche, if you've ever seen that. Jay, I'm not sure if you've seen a Special Wishes console.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's reminiscent of that. Not sure who inspired who there, but very, very similar. DP instrumentation. We've got a DP odometer there, speedometer. Of course, going up to 200 miles an hour. Why not? Carbon fiber dashboard. Oftentimes these cars came in Alcantara or like a mouse hair style dash. This one has a carbon fiber. Definitely one of my favorite features are the DP lollipop seats.
Yeah, they're incredible, aren't they?
They are, and you know, I guess we'll get into how this car came to being in this state, but these are carbon fiber backed DP lollipop seats, custom made, DP roll bar in the back. We've heard stories of customers having them fitted in leather, different special parts of the car being covered in leather trim.
Let me ask you this, was this car on the interior in this state when you bought it? I mean, how much have you done? I mean, you mentioned earlier on that, you know, it didn't start like this. What was it like when you bought it?
It wasn't that much different, but certainly the key elements that making it a DP935-2, they were all intact. The gentleman who owned the car prior to me was much smaller than I am in terms of size. He was short, and so he had a special seat custom made for himself. These seats were recently acquired and custom made by DP in Cologne and sent here. They were also autographed by Eckhard Zimmermann and Patrick Zimmermann, which is really exciting.
That's a fabulous touch, isn't it?
It's an honor to even have that interaction with them.
What about the remainder of the car when you bought it? Because you've done quite a bit to it, haven't you?
I have. I mean, we did a preservation, or I should say I and a good friend of mine who did the work. I'd call it a preservation, and we worked with DP on curating the car to determine anything that we could do to upgrade it, to bring it to the next level with modern technologies or materials. So that has happened and is still happening. We'll be replacing these RS door panels with carbon fiber DP door panels. We're also adding a ventilation system, carbon fiber, to the brake system. You know, we've done quite a bit to the car to refurbish it. Some of the, the front spoiler, for example, was original, but we decided to upgrade it with carbon fiber. At the same time, we did the rear wing and the rear spoiler with carbon fiber, all spec'd from DP upon their recommendation. So it's been a real collaboration. It's such a special car and such a special experience, especially working with DP. So. They're craftsmen, and they're smart, and they care about their customers. So that's been really nice to work with them. One unique feature about this car worth mentioning is that this car has a G50 5-speed in it, which is very, very special. It's a big conversion done in period. If I had to guess, this was done right around the late 80s.
Right.
The origins of this car are that it pops up somewhere in Vermont, southern Vermont, and lived in and around the western Massachusetts and Connecticut area during that time. And ironically, there was a DP authorized dealer in that area in Connecticut. So we believe that many of these modifications were done through that dealership, which adds a neat story to this car that we're documenting. Some other key features on this particular car that I find quite interesting is the roof gutters, which are typically found on every 930, have been shaved off of this car. That's quite a big job. The reason you do that is for aerodynamics. That was done in period on this car. The DP2 came with either deep dish Fuchs or BBS wheels. When I found this car, it had the original BBS wheels on it, but through the recommendation of DP Motorsport, we decided to update the wheels with new, fresh Felgen Fuchs from DP, custom hand-painted center caps that they did for me, which I'm really excited about. But we've preserved the other wheels, and they're being refurbished now, and we may run that from time to time. Another feature is it's got Countach size 345 tires in the back. So that's 345, 35, 15s.
Big slabs of rubber.
Yeah, they're big. And that was really the look back in the mid 80s, was that deep dish wide rear look that this car retains. So it has brand new tires on it recently. Pirelli does a batch here and there, and they are available. Typically a DP935 may have a graphics kit. Jay, you asked about that earlier.
Sure.
That is actually coming soon for this car. DP has sent that recently, so we'll be doing that to the car.
And is that the stripes go on the over the top? Do they? I mean,
no, they actually run they swoop down the side and up around the back.
Yeah.
It's a very retro look. It's it's quite neat. So
well, more to come then. We'll have to come back and have another look at it.
Definitely, yeah.
Patrick, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for sparing the time to talk with us,
yes,
all the way to DP in Germany. It's a family-run company then, Patrick, is that right?
Yes, my father founded this company 73. We are 50 years this year. And I came to this company, I think it was 2002, 21 years ago. And now I'm the only one here. My father is at home now.
He's retired. Yeah, okay.
Yes, he's retired.
How did the company start? What was the motivation for starting the company?
My father did work as a designer in at Ford. Here in Cologne, we have a big production of Ford cars. And he was working there as a designer. And he was working there, I think, 9 years. And it was too boring for him. And he did always working with fiberglass and producing body parts in his free time after work. So there were so much guys who were who wanted these parts. And then my father said, okay, then perhaps it's interesting for me. I do my own work and make my own company. And from the first day, he had a few Porsche clients. And then he started with body panels for Porsche clients.
And it went from there. And those clients, were they motorsport clients initially?
The first client, the first things he did, these were formula cars. And these formula cars, but it was in the time when he was working at Ford. He made a lot of for Formula cars, and when he started his own company, he had a few private clients for street cars. But in the first years, he learned the Kramer brothers from Kramer. They heard from my father. They said, "Oh, I saw a front bumper. I never saw anywhere. Who did build it?" And so they came to my father, and this is the reason why Kramer and DP were doing so much things together in the years after this.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. And because your company went on to huge success with Kramer.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, about how that went on, because you went all the way to the top at Le Mans. And talk a little bit about that. That's absolutely fascinating, because I think most people will know Kramer who know Porsche.
The Kramer guys started with early 911 cars with their racing history, and in the beginning of the 70s, they were driving with a 911 ST. And my father did build flares, extensions for the cars. They were made from fiberglass, and there were guys who are driving with original Porsche cars with metal flares, and they were driving with fiberglass flares. And they were one race. They had an accident. These both cars, the Porsche car and the Kramer car, and the Kramer car could drive till to the end because the fiberglass flare was cracked and gone away, and the metal feet were pushing the tire till the tire was broken. So Kramer did win the race and Porsche not. And this was the beginning of fiberglass flares in the motorsport at Porsche.
Wow.
Incredible. That's an incredible story.
Wow.
And you went with Kramer all the way to winning Le Mans.
Yes, in the beginning of 76 or 75, I think 76, they were driving the first turbo cars, and they called their first turbo car K1. And this was a mono turbo, was looking nearly like an RSR, but a little bit bigger spoiler and a little bit more spoiler lip at the front. And they had very much success with this car. And in the next year came the next evolution. It was a K2, next year the K3, and the cars were going always bigger and bigger, and more power. And my father did design every car. So he made the design for the body kit, and Kramer said, "Okay, we love your design, but you only have to take the measurements we will give you, 2 meters wide and things like this." And the rest made my father, and was testing these cars always on the racetrack. He was climbing in the rear of the car, looking if there's coming air in for the ventilation for the intercoolers. He said he had much stories about this. Like Klaus Ludwig was driving, and my father was behind him, behind the seat in the race car, and looking where's coming the air and where you can take air for the intercoolers, for the turbochargers, for everything like this.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Legendary.
And what did your father ever tell you what it felt like to win Le Mans? I mean, that must have been an absolute triumphant moment.
Yeah, Porsche never did it with a 911. Kramer and my father were the first ones who did it. And my father was every year in Le Mans at the 24-hour race. Only not this year because he had too much to do in the workshop. They had too much work, so they were working the whole weekend. But
He wasn't there.
But in this time, there were you could hear the race in the radio. So they had the radio on in the workshop and heard what's happened. And then when the race was ending, it was Sunday, and they were Sunday working because they had so much work. They stopped directly working and going to the restaurant next to them and were drinking a lot of beer.
Oh, that's amazing.
Great.
And throughout that time, were you making road cars at that time as well, or was it just a focus on the motorsports?
No, there were about two areas in our company: the motorsport part and the street cars part. And there were a lot of clients who said, "Well, these race cars are looking so great. Why can't we have something like this, not for the street?" And my father said, "I had the same question in my mind. I will do it." And then he started with the first 935 street cars, a car like Danny's, but the first version was a DP1. Danny has a DP2.
Yeah.
And I think the DP1 was very successful in Germany. Scandinavia had very much cars from my father, and America. Few cars were here in Saudi Arabia, but most of them Germany, USA, Scandinavia.
Now, you had a Swedish production shop at one point?
Yeah, it was called DP Sweden, and it was in Hässleholm, near to Stockholm.
And a shop in the Connecticut area, I believe, in the United States?
In the United States, yes, but I think it was not a real workshop who did convert these cars there. They only sold the cars there and made service for the cars. But the cars to America were built here in Overath. This is the town where we live here.
And what is the process of building a DP1 or a DP2? How do you start? You start with a Porsche 911. You have to find a G-body Porsche 911 or a 964, and then you go. What happens from there?
Okay, now in this time, it is not so often that we build a 935 DP car. This was in the 80s, and in the 80s, the cars were new.
Yeah.
They came from the factory, and then they were destroyed here in our company. They made a new car.
Funny.
We have a lot of clients who had a car, but they were 2, 4, 6 years old. This were really like new cars.
So everything
for America, example, the American clients were asking for a car with brown leather, with air condition, with outside black color, and then my father did order these cars at Porsche in new, and they came here and had 400 meters on the speedometer, and then we were cutting everything.
Wow.
And when a lot of clients wanted these cars special. They wanted every knob with leather. They wanted a roll cage completely in leather, and so much different options what you could choose at this time. So some cars came from Porsche factory, and the interior stayed the same. Only the body kit and the wheels and the exhaust and the suspension was changing. But most of them had special wishes for the interior.
Yeah. So, as an enthusiast of cars from the 80s, I just think of these cars at the level or maybe even beyond a Countach, a DP 935 2 being the ultimate Porsche 911 turbo. And there were celebrity style owners that would order these cars. Mario Andretti was one, Rod Stewart. Pete Rose, famous baseball player. At one time, I think Pete Rose and Mario Andretti may have had a partnership on a racing team. And these were extraordinarily expensive cars back then because they were new. And then basically the price was doubled and then some to get them to be a true DP. Is that correct? Is that your understanding?
Yes. We have here in Germany, we have a lot of rich guys who did order these cars. We had a few sport stars who ordered cars, a few race drivers, but most of them were teeth doctors and someone else who earns much money.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, as I have a Countach also, but the DP is more wild and easier, better to drive in every way than a Countach. And it's just
I think most tractors are as well, though.
depends.
I'm kidding.
But it's really, it screams the 80s. It screams racing. And I think today, there are other car makers like Singer doing what you did back in period, and the cars are very different. They're not as designed for racing so much as a DP 935 too. Many people were racing these cars also, were they not?
Yes, first the race cars were the Kramer cars, the K134 were the race cars. So my father did not street car. So
we've lost you, Patrick.
Work not so big for the street, and then years later the clients asked my father, it makes so much fun with this car to drive. I tried it on the racetrack, but we have to change something that the cars are faster on the racetrack. So now begin the time of DP Motorsport at the race cars. And we did convert these cars so that they worked very, very nice at the racetracks.
Now, going back to the late 70s, when it's my understanding that the Moby Dick Porsche, the famous slope nose Porsche that was being raced, that was only for factory race teams for Porsche. And so to get onto the track, this is where Kramer and DP were providing race cars like the Moby Dick car for private groups. And that's a little bit, it reminds me a little bit of the story of Ford versus Ferrari and how Carroll Shelby created its own entity within Ford, their own race team, if you will. And that reminds me a little bit of Kramer and DP contextually in the history of motorsports. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, you're right, but it is we are a lot of smaller company and we did a lot of less cars than Shelby or some guys of that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, even more exclusive. Yes. Wow.
I was just smiling at the picture behind you there, Patrick. I mean, my God.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at that.
Look at that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, this was the race winner of 24 Hours Le Mans, 79.
Wow.
But this is a replica of this. The original one is in America.
It's over here.
The original car.
Ah, okay. So tell us a little bit about your company today.
This year was the last version of DP Motorsport 935 for the racetrack. There is a body. The body under it is a 964 car.
I want to say that you've recently done a car very similar to that, and I think that it lives in the Connecticut area. It's a 964 DP 935.
Please again, it was not loud enough.
Yeah. I believe that there is a DP 935 made from a 964 living in America right now. It may have been one of the last made.
Yes, it's a silver car. Same like on the picture where I was standing. This is the only street car what we did build where the donor car was 964. And this is in America today. That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and I believe
it was gone to Miami, but where it is now, I'm not sure.
I believe it's in Connecticut, and it's in a very, very exclusive collection. I think collectors who are of our age, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, look back at DP today and are really appreciating it for what it was. And so we're starting to collect these cars and maybe even build a new car because you're still doing that.
Yes, we can still do it, and I have 2 clients now. For them, we are working on a 964 to a 935. The one is going to America, the other one is staying here.
Wow! And is that the focus of your company now, or are you still in the motorsports business? What does your business look like today?
The business today is a part of everything. We have street cars, the service, inspection, and little mechanic work. Then we have a lot of conversions. We did 964 to a backdate F model look, the F model look on it. We have a lot of people to build these cars lighter, to make club sport, the track day cars from the old 911s. And then we have a lot of production parts that we sell and send out, from suspensions, body kits, nearly everything.
And for the conversion cars, does somebody have an idea and then they come to you with an idea, or is there a menu of things they can choose from? How do they engage with you?
Now we have on our homepage a lot of examples what we can build, where you can order a body kit, or where you can say, this I want, and I bring my car and you make it completely. And some guys want something very special parts. And then it's then you have the possibility that we build it for them.
Yeah.
Look at us. We're in a DP2 with in our lollipop seats.
Yep.
Wow. Shall we go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Whoa.
All right. So I'm going to take you down one of my favorite driving roads.
All right. The sound of this car is superb.
I guess we're going to have to talk loud, huh?
We're going to have to talk loud, yeah.
All right. That's okay.
Anyone who drives a modern Porsche will not have experienced what an older Porsche is like. They are a lot rawer and they're a lot more upright, the windshield, and they're really small. And that's what I love about them. Everything caves in around you, and you almost feel as if you're connected to these cars.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Sorry, I'm just too busy laughing.
Try not to hit this person. Okay. I think not that the new Porsches aren't. I mean, they're amazing. They are amazing.
Oh, they are. They're the best sports cars in the world.
But they do practically drive themselves.
Yes.
Most of them.
But this is a different experience. This is raw, and immediately when you get into it, you feel those fat tires at the back there.
You do. You feel like it's the car's behind you. It really feels special.
Yeah. It feels firm. The ride, I mean, we drove here on the way and we talked about this on the way, but the ride is not that compliant. It's pretty firm. So the combination of those tires and the firm suspension makes for very good handling.
It does. This car has had suspension tweaks done by DP. Certainly the wide tires, the 345s in the back change the driving characteristics of the car.
Yeah.
It is fast. It is very fast. The turbo when it kicks in, you need to be prepared. You need to know how to handle the turbo. That goes with any 930.
Well, I remember I drove a few years ago. Viewers to my channel will remember I drove a 930 a couple of years ago, and the power comes on about 4,000 revs. Fairly suddenly, but when it comes on, there is plenty of power. Now this has 400 horsepower versus the 260 that had.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
And
it's lighter.
And it whistles, which is quite a phenomenon.
Well, so yeah, I mean, you can hear the turbo in this. It's right behind my left ear.
And I think, you know, Jay, one of the great things about this car is just the driving characteristics because of the G55 speed. I mean,
yeah,
you know, we're in second gear here.
Was that only second?
That was second. I'm going into third. Typically on a regular 930, you find yourself doing a lot in second gear, more than you would in this car. You can get into third gear in this car and comfortably drive and still, you know, experiment with that boost. Whereas on a regular 930 with the 4-speed, third gear in boost is so uncontrollably fast that it almost doesn't get used as much. And then fourth gear, of course, is just highway driving.
Yeah.
This car, you know, I can experiment with fourth and third and go back and forth and still be within most of the legal limit. It's a fascinating car. The whole gear ratios just change the way that this car drives compared to a regular 930. Can I tell you a little bit about how I came to acquire this car?
Oh, I'd love to hear about that. Yeah.
So I've been, I guess, looking or interested in a DP 935 since probably the 2008 to 2010 time period. You know, we were in the recession back then, and cars like this were, all cars were more affordable. And I began to think, what if I could ever find one? Maybe I could acquire one and live that dream. As a kid growing up in the 80s, this was the ultimate car. This and the Countach. Any 930.
Don't give away our secrets about the next video.
Okay, sorry.
You're giving away our secrets. There might be a couple of Lamborghinis in the next film.
So, yes, but I mean, you know, I think a big part of my passion with these cars is chasing what was such an amazing dream.
You never used to see cars like this back in the day, did you? Back in the 80s
no,
and
I never saw one of these in the wild. I had, you know, I never saw one out in public in New Hampshire. I've seen a handful of Countaches, and I really put this car in the category of Countach. I put this car and the Countach even above a Testarossa, just because they made so many Testarossas.
They did, 7,000 of them,
But they made so few of these cars. They made so few Countaches. Probably less of these cars than Countaches. So, at the end of the day, I started looking for these cars around that time and became a bit obsessed. And one had popped up in New Hampshire.
And what are the chances of that?
Well, it showed up at a muscle car shop around 2009 or 2010. And I ended up I did not acquire the car, but it left an impression on me, and I started really researching these cars. And there is something called the DP 935 registry, and it had a marketplace, and it was an active website. It's now less active now, only because the founder of the DP 935 registry, Harold Williams, he passed about 2 years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
But he was a wonderful person and expert in the 935 community. He knew where a lot of cars were and knew the histories of these cars, and he and I chatted over the years, and he helped me along the way 2017, this car popped up somewhere, and I actually sent it to Harold, and he said, "Yeah, that looks like a pretty good car, and it's got a lot of potential." And you know, it was just a few photographs that we had of it, and the car showed up in Rhode Island.
Wow. Okay.
So not too far away from New Hampshire. Wasn't in, you know, Saudi Arabia.
No.
It was in Rhode Island.
Which is, again, what are the chances of it being so close to you? It's crazy.
And there are very few cars like this. You know, notably the Mario Andretti blue car surfaced around 2015-16 time period. It's a very big price tag. It was at one time at Dobson Motorsports, and they did a full detail presentation of that car, and it was really a great example piece to then go say, okay, what is it about this actual car, the one I'm driving now, how similar is it to the Andretti car?
Yeah.
And they were very similar cars.
Okay.
Both DP2 cars, same center console, same Kevlar body, same wheels, almost the same car.
Yeah.
And I got really excited by this car and pursued it. And I called the owner in 2017. I called him in 2018, and every single time
he said no.
He basically said, "Get lost," in a polite way. He was Portuguese, and he really interesting guy. Had a neat collection of cars, and pursued it at 19. And every September I would call, and he said, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready." And in 2021, after all those years of calling him, he responded. I actually texted him this time, and he said, "You can come see the car."
Oh.
That's actually
so you got in your car that moment, did you, and drove down there?
I think it was the next day.
Oh, it literally was the next day, wasn't it?
I think it was the next day, and we met. I went to his place in Narragansett, Rhode Island. Prior to that, I'd scoured the internet looking for other photographs of this car. So excited. There was a gentleman in Boston. He goes by the nickname Boston Sean. He's a great photographer, car enthusiast, and he had photographed this car and profiled it on his Instagram page at a PCA event in Boston sometime in 2018 or 19. And I actually stalked Boston Sean and said, can you tell me about the car? And this is just just before I was about to acquire the car, go and see the car. And he sent me photographs. It was a really exciting moment, and Boston, Sean, and I have become good friends. Anyways, I go to Narragansett, and he was a really, really neat guy. He'd owned the car for 20 years. He had a nice collection of European exotics, just really, really cool stuff. He lived on a really neat part of Narragansett. You could practically smell the ocean air. And had a big cardboard, and real authentic guy. And he told me a story about how he had acquired the car, and we think the car lived in the western Massachusetts, northern Connecticut area prior to his ownership. Ironically, there was that shop nearby, which
the DP shop, yeah,
correct, correct. And Spencer Cox ran that shop, and he went to Germany in 1989, and he had met Patrick Zimmermann and came back as the only authorized DP service engine provider. So I have a reason to believe this car passed through that shop at some point.
Yeah. It's been a sort of a New England car.
It's been a New England car.
Yeah.
It is originally a European specification 1985 930.
Yeah.
So he and I, the seller of this car, we meet in Narragansett in 2021 in September, and it was was a really great interaction.
The thing with this car is it gives you, if you want to drive this car slow, like I'm driving now, there is no struggling. It's easy.
Yeah.
You know, some cars when they get too much performance,
Yeah.
they don't run good when they are
Yeah.
going slow.
I know what you
So-
mean. My Countach is like that. You can only drive it hard, you
Yeah.
know. There's no, if you're driving at a slow speed, it's no fun.
But this,
And he asked me what I wanted to pay for the car, and I came up with a number. And his response, it was a strong number that I offered him. I knew I really only had one shot. So he said, "Wow, it'd be hard for me to say no to that because of what my wife."
My wife will kill me if I don't take that money.
Basically,
Yes.
it was basically.
There's always a wife involved somewhere, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. I was taking a lot of photographs. I was really excited about this car, and we're standing in his grassy field outside of his car barn, and we came to an agreement, and I was so happy and so excited, and I said to him, "Okay, I will organize the money and I'll send it to you next week." And he kind of paused as if to, I don't know, not renege on that, but he says, "Well, you know, and he said it in a Portuguese accent, "You know, you're gonna have to not just give me money, you're gonna have to come up with a car of some value, because, you know."
He wanted to stay in the Porsche family.
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah, and without saying his wife wasn't going to let him get another car, I think that he was basically saying, "You've got to offer me a car so that I get something to get over the pain of selling this car and the cash." And so,
Wow. But he wasn't asking you to have the money and the car.
No,
the car
it was-
goes towards the money. Yeah.
correct, yeah. So whatever the car's value was minus the money we just.
Yeah.
But that was a new challenge that I had to now come up with on the spot.
Yeah.
So I always have a couple of interesting cars around, so it's, you know, in my hobby, my passion, and so at the time I had my Countach, and I happened to have a 928 GTS, and he actually asked me about the Countach if I could have that. I said, "No, you're not kidding, my Countach," and it was in restoration mode anyways. But I showed him a picture of this gorgeous 1995 928 GTS.
Yeah.
And it had 55,000 original miles. It was owned by a great collector, and it had been serviced. Really nice car, and he took interest in that car, and that worked out well for him, and it worked out well for me, and he still has that car.
Wow.
And a couple days later, I came back with a trailer, and here we are.
So I mean, one of the important things to note from that is that you're a 928 fan as well, aren't you?
I love 928s.
Yeah, I mean, you've had them in the past. You've got 2 now, is that right?
I have 3, and I'm about to have a fourth also.
Right.
They sort of keep multiplying.
This is the thing about 928 ownership, right? People want more than one. Now, that's
Yes.
not... Most people, when they buy a classic car of some kind, they'll have one, and then their next classic car will be something else.
Well, the 928 is just such a wonderful car, and if you enjoy Porsche, you enjoy driving, you enjoy cruising, you enjoy going fast.
Yeah.
It does it all, and for the amount of money that they are trading at currently, and I predict that that's going to change as time goes on. You know, you cannot beat the experience.
I totally agree. I totally agree, and it makes me think that I've only got one.
For now.
I might need to do something about
For
that.
now, they
Well,
multiply.
I did a video the other day about driving a manual one, and I loved the manual, but I also love the car that I've got. So I'm thinking that rather than swapping, maybe a little addition
Just get another one. I mean,
might be the right way to tackle that problem.
I think that's a good plan. And I would say the automatic in a 928 is amazing. It is a wonderful car. It
Not
suits
my
the car very
automatic,
well.
but the normal, the one that works.
Okay,
yeah.
But you know, it suits that car, and you know, getting in that car and getting on the highway and really cruising, that's
and
what
I
that
feel
car is
it makes
for.
me. It's the way it makes me feel. I'm sure it's the same with this. It's the way it makes you feel. I mean, this you feel like a motor racing god driving this. But in a 928, the outrageous styling and the respect it gets from other people, and just the experience makes you feel great.
I would agree. I think any Porsche from this time, you know, these were less produced than they are now. They were highly exclusive.
Yes.
I mean, the reason why 928s typically have been, a lot of them are tired is because they were used so much because people love them so much.
Yeah.
And the owners paid a lot of money for those cars, and they were used a lot as a result of that, and they were very driver friendly.
Right.
So that's really an exciting thing about the 928. You know, this car in particular, when you think about the price of a 911 turbo, and then the fact that someone went and doubled, or I believe in this case maybe even went above doubling the price of this car.
The original car, yeah.
So, you know, if this was, you know, this would have exceeded the price of a Countach, which was one of the most expensive cars in the world at that time.
Yeah.
Given, you know, the G50 transmission swap, you know, the shaving of the roof gutters.
Well, the quality in here is given this is a 1985 car, the quality in here is very high.
I thank you, and I think it is. I think it drives as well as any. I don't want to say any modern Porsche, because I don't think that's you really can't compare.
Well, they're very different.
I would rather be driving this car than almost anything. I mean,
I can see why that would be true. Yeah, absolutely. It's a totally different experience to a new car.
I'm going to open it up here a little bit on this blast. I'll wait a moment. But you know, one of the great things about after I acquired this car was working with DP to then curate it and then take it to the next level, and that's what we've done with it. And I'm really proud of that. And I've gotten to know DP and Patrick, and
it's very authentic, the DP experience. I mean, the way Patrick came on the phone with us and took us through his entire building shows the type of experience that you have.
It was very personal.
To me, that's what it seems like. And does that feel like that as an owner?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a family-run business. They treat their clients with a ton of respect and attention to detail. Between you know, my interactions with Patrick, Jerome, who works for Patrick, and then the fact that Mr. Zimmermann Sr. came and signed the seats. I mean, just an incredible. You know, they're passionate about their products and what they do. So yeah, it's a lot to be said.
Yeah.
All right, shall we?
Let's do it, shall we?
Do it.
Here we go. Here we go. Well, what fun we have had.
It's been great.
In a DP2 today. My God, what a car. I mean, what a car.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Jay, you are a gentleman, and I just really value the fact that you came all the way up here to do this.
It's been fun though, hasn't it? We've just made this video, and it's just been a lot of fun. And now what the next thing is, of course, we've got a special video coming.
We do.
But we're not going to tell them about that. But you've had the teaser earlier in the video. Holy shit, I'm sitting in the Diablo. But thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have really enjoyed watching this with us. This is a really special Porsche. In fact, it's a DP. There it is. More coming from this area, from this neck of the woods. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed this, give me a like. Consider subscribing.
I have one question for you.
Hit me.
Are you going to get the Porsche 930?
I might my wife's not watching this.
I think that would be
It would
cool.
be pretty good, wouldn't it? I can't get
Or
a
at least
DP.
another 920.
I could get another 928, yeah. These are the friends you want in your life, people, the ones that persuade you to buy more Porsches. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.